in this chapter, Bali Maharaj has defied the orders of his guru. That's how the chapter opens. And he gives pretty, I would say, compelling arguments for why everything should actually be given to Vishnu. After all, everything belongs to Vishnu and death is inevitable. So might as well give with profit instead of having it forcibly taken away. So in this way, he defied the orders of his guru. And he is an example of a disciple who rejects the guru because the guru is anti-Vishnu. So this verse, I'm sure, must have been referenced several times, but I'll share it again. Guru nasasyat swajano nasashat namochaya yasamupetu mrityum. This is coming from Rishabhadev's teachings. It says that one should not become a guru or a relative, swajana. That seems kind of hard to avoid. One should not become a father or a mother or a husband or a devata, unless they're able to deliver their dependent from the cycle of birth and death. And as we know from Bhagavad Gita, that deliverance is only possible by bhakti. Krishna says in many places, Daiviyesha gunamayi mama maya dharatya mameva ye prapadyante mayami tam tarantite. That the material energy of mine is insurmountable, but only those who surrender to me can cross beyond it. Later, Krishna will say, Mam chayo avyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate saguna samatite tam brahmabhuyaya kalpate. That only by the bhakti yoga can one cross beyond the gunas and attain Brahman, the spiritual sky. And that was in response to Arjuna's question how to come out of the material world, the gunas or samsara. Bhakti amama vijananti yavanyashasmi tatutaha vishate taranantaram. Later, Krishna says only by the bhakti you can attain Brahman or you can attain me, the Supreme Person. Vishate taranantaram, and enter into that reality. So there are many statements like this in Gita that one can come out of the material energy only by bhakti. So here this verse is saying if they cannot deliver you from the cycle of birth and death, that means they should give teachings of bhakti, right? Then they should not become guru or relative, etc. Or the opposite is also indicated, that such people are fit to be rejected. In the case of a guru, it is generally considered an impropriety of etiquette to reject a guru, almost for any reason, except for when they become anti-Vishnu or anti-Vaishnav. If they become anti-Vishnu or anti-Vaishnav, then they are fit to be rejected, generally only in that particular case. But other cases, there should try to be some reconciliation. But in the case where they become, they develop animosity towards Vaishnavas and Vishnu, then one may reject them. So Shukracharya, the seminal guru, he has some animosity towards Vishnu because his thinking was, if Vishnu gets everything, what will I get? And I can relate to that totally, absolutely. If Bali Maharaj, so the seminal priests or gurus, they depend on their employers. So Bali Maharaj is his employer. So Bali Maharaj gives everything. What will there be left for me? He is thinking like this. Such gurus or teachers, they don't know that their real self-interest lies in pleasing Vishnu. They don't know this thing. And Darashaya, their hearts are spoiled and they take material things too seriously. Bahir Arthamanina, giving too much consideration to the external world and external consideration, material calculation. So Shukracharya is thinking like this. He's advised his disciple Bali not to give to Vishnu. So Bali Maharaj rejected that. So many statements of scripture are given. I'm trying to share here why that is acceptable. And Bali Maharaj became glorious because of this particular rejection. His example is in fact cited in the purport to this verse from Rishabhadev's teaching, 5518. So after rejecting his guru, Shukracharya cursed him. He was upset. You will not listen to me, then I curse you. Back in the day, curses were flying around like anything, especially these sages and tapasvi sadhus. They all the time were cursing. Oh, you not follow my instruction, I curse you. To lose all your material opulence. That was his curse, because in his mind, that is a big deal. Narada Muni similarly was cursed by Daksha in the 6th canto. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was also similarly cursed. Oh, and they all were like, Jai, very good. Thank you. What a benediction. In the materialistic demeanor, the things are considered as valuable and consciousness is usually neglected. So when you become sadhaka, you try to deal with things only as far as needed so that you can give proper attention to consciousness, right? And it's you can say growth. Consciousness doesn't really grow, but in the sense of our realization of our essential nature and the ground of being, then we try to we deal with things only as far as necessary. But sometimes, as you may notice, as sadhaka, even when you want to deal with things less, it's a little difficult because the attachment is there. So sometimes if Krishna shows the special mercy, yasyaha anugrenami harishe tadinam shanai. If Krishna gives the mercy, he'll take away the things. Now you can think of me easily, no problem. Otherwise, sadhaka, because we have a little difficulty because of our deep-rooted attachments. Sometimes you're attached, you don't even realize how attached you are. It happens all the time. So then Krishna may show some mercy and remove the attachment. Okay, I'm going to give an example, but don't give this example unless you're in the devotee community. But in first canto, chapter 6, Narada Muni, after he was instructed by the sages, he developed attachment for them. And then when they departed from his home, this is in his previous life as Sudra. Then they departed. He wanted to follow them, but there was no one to take care of his mother. So he stayed back to take care of his mother, although he could not really do anything for her because she was still too young, like 5-year-old boy, a young boy. But he thought it was his duty. I think she was single parent, and which was a little strange for those times, but she was somehow single parent. Maybe husband died or something. And so he said, I have to take care of my mother. But then by providential arrangement, she was bitten by a snake and she died. And this is the part that you don't generally want to share in any ordinary audience. Narada Muni thought this was a great mercy at that time. And Prabhupada writes in the purport, and I never forget this when I first read it. Prabhupada writes that this is the way that the personality of Godhead drags a sincere soul back home, back to Godhead. And just hearing that phrase drags, for me on a personal level, I got the image of like a child throwing a temper tantrum. Maybe my mom took me to Toys R Us and I wanted to stay in Toys R Us a little bit longer. And she said, it's time to go. And I didn't want to go. So she had to drag me out and I throwing temper tantrum, hitting the floor, and she's just dragging me out of the store. Sidebar, my mom never had to do that. She just had to look, and I understood the tattoo at that time. But I've seen this thing in my short life. I've seen this thing a few times, parents like dragging their kids. And so I kind of had that image. This is the way the personality of Godhead drags a sincere soul back home, back to Godhead. The idea is one may be entangled with things more than their power allows them to abnegate from. I don't know if I use that properly. Anyway, so that time one requires a little help from the personality of Godhead, isn't it? So he takes away everything from his devotee. And the devotee thinks, the devotee sadhaka or the advanced devotee, they think this is glorious thing. This is very nice. So Shukracharya is giving curse to Bali Maharaj, right? May all your opulence be taken away. Daksha gave same curse. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was similarly cursed, and they all have responded. What is the problem here? This is very good. Already the entanglement with things is a big problem. Now the entanglement is settled. You've just cursed me. There will be no more things. And now my soul is able to float or be lifted by the winds of devotion, unburdened by the weight of things. So this is benediction. Of course, Shukracharya didn't think it as such. He thought it's a curse because he's so attached to things. So Atmavamanya Jagat, as we are, we think others are like this also. So I'm attached to the things, so others must also be attached like me. So he gave such a curse. So after being cursed, Bali Maharaj didn't have any difficulty, no problem. So then he gave to Vishnu, Vamandev. So Vamandev asked for 3 steps, right? So in his very first step, took the whole Bhumando disc, right? Shastra is telling there one Bhumandal is there stretching across the universe that is called the Earth disk. So his first step, he took the whole Bhumandal disk and all the regions below the Bhumandala in his first step. And his body expanded to such heights that his body took over the antariksha, the space, the outer space, we call it. And his arms, when they also expanded, they covered all the directions. So that was just in his first step. Already most of the universe is covered. Then he stretched his next leg. His second leg was there, the second step. I'm going back to the verse here. Padan dutiyam kramatas trivishtapam. So when he took his second step, Padan dutiyam kramatas trivishtapam, that second step covered all the upper planetary systems. So much so that his body has covered everything now. Navaitruti yaya tadiya anu api. There was no place to put the third step. So here, for this reason, he is called Urukrama. This word Urukrama is a word used for Krishna in general, but it specifically refers to Vamandev, who performs this uncommon activity of stretching his body to cover the entire universe. Maharjanabhyam tapasa paramgata. And it's stretched all the way, not only Swarga, but above the heavenly region Swarga, there are other planetary systems, Mahaloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka, all the way up to Satyaloka, where Lord Brahma lives. And Paramgata. Paramgata means that his foot approached that region which is beyond this material world. So that's why Prabhupada's purport is talking about how his toe penetrated the Brahmanda, the shell of the universe. And when his toe penetrated the shell, the waters of the causal ocean, that's the waters which Mahavishnu is lying on, it comes through that hole created by the foot of Lord Vamandev. That is the Ganges water. And that water purifies the entire universe. So that is Prabhupada's purport here. The teaching here is very nice. And the teaching here means in terms of the context of the entire chapter is that Vishnu's form contains everything. That's the idea. And because his form contains everything, that means in a sense that he is everything. And this teaching this is also the teaching of the Bhagavad Gita, because the form of the Lord contains everything, then he is everything. And one who moves around the world with that meditation, with that, bhavana, that meditation, that the Lord contains everything and therefore he is everything. This teaching is known as the more secret knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita. The teachings of the Bhagavad Gita are divided, you can say, into secret, more secret, and most secret knowledge. Guhya, Guhyat Tara, and Guhyat Tama. So the Guhya Tara, the more secret knowledge, is the knowledge that Krishna, as the Purusha. Purusha means the Paramatma, the self-eminent within the universe. His form is containing everything. And so in this sense, he actually is everything. Everything is actually a manifestation of the Purusha. So it is in this sense a Purusha. Just like if you go to chapter 9, Bhagavad Gita, verses 16 through 19, Krishna says, I am this, I am that, I am this, I am that. Identify himself with different aspects of the material world. And Prabhupada says in the purports there that, because in one spot he says he's the Jiva. So Prabhupada said, yes, there's small Krishna and there's big Krishna. So he said, we are small Krishnas and Krishna is the big Krishna. Prabhupada's writing commentary like this. So the idea is that one should walk around the whole world with the meditation that everything is actually the Purusha. This is teaching of Bhagavad Gita. So I pulled up these verses from Bhagavad Gita. There's more secret knowledge. The popular book was there called The Secret, right? This is a very popular book in Western world called Secret. And for years and years, maybe even to this day, people do like videos on The Secret and what it means. And I don't really know their tattva, but Bhagavad Gita has a secret too. And it also has more secret and most secret. And we have a little bit more extra. We have extra secret. So now the more secret knowledge Krishna is giving here in this Bhagavad Gita, 1861 and 62 and 63. So I just share these verses are very nice. Ishvara sarvabhutanam hrideshe arjuna tishtati. So Krishna says that he is living or residing, Tishriti, in the heart of all living entities as the Ishvara. So Ishvara means the Purusha or the Paramatma. So he lives inside everything because he is also pervading everything. That is the meaning of living inside everything. Like the ether, earlier in the Bhagavad Gita, he gives example like ether. Ether is everywhere, outside of us, inside of us, the ether is there. So Paramatma, sometimes even in the Upanishad, is called as ether, Akasha. The word Akasha or ether is sometimes used as a nomenclature for the Paramatma also. So he lives inside everything inside everyone as the Ishvara. Brahmayam Sarvabhutani Yantra Arudhani Mayaya. And by his Mayaya means his external potency, he causes all living entities to wander. Brahmayan means wandering. We're wandering all over the place, right? Like I wandered from New York to Florida. Now I'm in North Carolina. Then I went back to New York. Then I came back to North Carolina, moving here and there. That was my personal story in the 2020 year. I know we're all moving here and there within our locales, moving from country to country, although governments are stopping that a little bit more now. So we're wandering hither and thither all over the universe. Brahmanda Brahmite. Mahaprabhu is also saying this, that wandering all over the Brahmanda. So Krishna says, yes, by my external potency, I cause all the living entities, Sarvabhutani, to wander around this world. Yantra Arudhani. On the yantra means like the machine. The machine refers to the material body on a microcosmic level, and it refers to the world on a macrocosmic level. It is a machine only. So he's calling us to wonder on the mechanisms of samsara. I saw a translation like this recently that I really liked. And we're wondering here, there, and there. That is by Paramatma. So the next verse, this is a very important verse, Tam Eva. So unto him means unto this Paramatma, mentioned in the previous verse. Unto him, certainly, Sharanam Gacha, one should take refuge. How you should take refuge of this Purusha? So there's a very important word here, Sarva Bhavena. Sarva Bhavena means with all of your bhava, with all of your, Jiva Goswami says the word Bhavena here means bhavana. And bhavana means meditation. With the meditation that everything is a Purusha. So he says that is the meaning. That is one meaning of the word Sarva Bhavena here. It means bhavana, that everything is the Purusha. There's a nice verse earlier in the Gita, chapter 2, verse 66. Na asti buddhir ayuktasha, na cha yuktasha bhavana, na cha bhavayata shanta, ashanta shukuta sukam. So this word bhavana is coming in that particular Gita verse, right? So Krishna says, from one who is ayuktasha. Ayuktasha means not connected. Yukta, the word yukta and yoga mean basically the same thing. It means like to connect or to link. That's how it's generally used in the Gita. Sometimes where yoga can mean unlink also in another context, but generally it means to link. So Krishna says, for one who is ayuktasya. Ayuktasya, for Gaudiyas, ayuktasya means we are suffering from the psychological separateness. We think that we are separate, right? We're separate from others. We're separate from God. And we even suffer from separateness from our own selves, frankly speaking. And not only in a spiritual sense, but just in a conventional sense, we suffer in this way, isn't it? Conventionally, we don't know who we are. So many YouTube channels and videos and podcasts about, it took me a long time to discover who I am. And they say like that in the interview, but also they still don't know. It's an ongoing problem, actually. Just conventionally speaking, I'm not talking about spiritually. Conventionally speaking, is an ongoing problem for the conditioned soul. We also feel that way. Before 2020, I knew who I was. After 2020, I don't know anymore. I had one sort of life, one sort of identity, and it was ripped away from me. Now I'm bewildered. It is an ongoing issue. So we suffer from ayuktasha. I'm describing ayuktasha means the sense that I'm separate from everything. I'm separate from others. I'm separate from God. And we're even separate from our own self. Now, this is not possible ontologically speaking. No one can be separate from God, but we feel that way. So there's a psychological separateness. So Krishna says, if you have this problem, ayuktasya, so all conditioned souls, they generally have this problem, then na asti buddhi, there will not be the existence of enlightened intelligence. That's why everyone can do the cruel things to each other, isn't it? How is possible if you know that everything is connected? How you can do cruel activities? And not possible because you know if you do cruelty to others, that impacts you also. But because we have this psychological separateness issue, then we can do cruelty to others thinking that they are separate from us. That is the only way it is possible. Otherwise, it's not possible. Just like with your own family, you will not do cruelty. Of course, it's really hard to give proper examples in Kali Yuga because everything is messed up now. But let's imagine a more ideal material world. People used to love their family members, and they will not perform the cruel activities because they identify very strongly with them, right? Because of the false ego. But if you have spiritual consciousness, at least according to Gita, then you see actually everything is connected because we're all existing on the same ground of being, which is Paramatma or Purusha, and we're also all consciousness. So where's the difference here actually? So the cruel activities only take place when there's that feeling of difference. So that's why Krishna says, na asti buddhi. If you have this psychological separateness, then there's no enlightened intelligence. Then without the enlightened intelligence, he says, na bhavana. There can be no bhavana, right? The meditation in the context of what we're describing here, the meditation that everything's actually Purusha. That jiva over there that I don't like right now because he said this thing to me on Facebook, so I got a little issue with. He's actually the Purusha. Maybe Purusha only inspired him to say those things to me because I need to get checked. That thing over there that I see, and I don't like that. That is also the Purusha. This thing over, that is also everything actually the Purusha. That is the bhavana that Sri Jiva Goswami is saying is where Sarva Bhavana means that bhavana. All of this is the bhavana. You can think that is a Purusha. That president I don't like, and that could mean, Mr. Donald Trump or this other guy, Joe Biden. Some people don't like him also. That is also the Purusha. Purusha is there also. Why he is not there? Everything is actually the Purusha. So this is the meaning of Sarva Bhavena. So Krishna says, if you don't have this bhavana, then he says, na shanti, there will not be any peace. So we don't need any purport to that. We know very well what is that experience. And he says, for one who is not peaceful, ashantasha kuta sukam. Where is happiness? Everyone's talking about, I want to be happy, but you have to be peaceful. Well, how you get peace? You need to have bhavana. And what is that bhavana? Actually, everything is the manifestation of the Purusha. Sarva bhavena. Tameva sharanam gacha sarva bhavena. So you surrender unto this Purusha with the sarva bhavena, with the bhavana. Or the word sarva bhavena means with all your sensual faculties, you surrender to that Purusha. Tat prasada param shantim. If you do this thing, then by the mercy of that Purusha, tat prasada, param shantim, you'll attain supreme peace. I already mentioned you'll become peaceful if you do bhavana, right? So what is param shantim? There's shanti and then param shanti. So Sri Jiva Goswami says param shantim means the Bhakti yoga. You'll obtain supreme devotion for the personality of Godhead. Sthanam prapsyasi shashvatam. And after that, you will attain the eternal abode, the spiritual reality. So this last verse here in this regard, on this more secret teaching. So Krishna says, iti te jnanam apkyatam guhya guhya taram maya. So you see the word here, right? Guhya tara. So this knowledge I've just described to you is guhya tara, more secret than the secret. So what is a secret knowledge? That is knowledge of Brahman, or knowledge of consciousness is different from Prakriti. That is called a secret knowledge. And more secret knowledge is to understand the very ground of that consciousness, the Purusha or Paramatma, and to see everything in the world as a manifestation of that Purusha. Even the good, even the bad, all of it is actually a manifestation of the Purusha, of Krishna. And if you think in that way, you become a peaceful person. And then if you're a peaceful person, you become a happy person. And if you're a happy person, you can bring happiness to those around you, to others. Then it becomes possible. Otherwise, not possible. So he said, you deliberate on this fully, and then you do as you like to do. So that one line people like very much, this last one, you do as you like. That line everyone cherishes very much from Bhagavad Gita. But he said, you deliberate on this teaching also. And I like to suggest it's not a very easy teaching to, when you really think about it, it presents a challenge to our psychological separateness. Because when you describe separateness, I mean, separateness is like, another word for separateness is alienation. That conveys even a stronger sense of negativity. Like this is not a good thing. I'm alienated from others, from God, from my own self. So when you say it like that, it sounds negative, and yeah, it sounds like a problem we should try to fix. But some of our alienation feelings we think are very much justified. Our sense of separateness is very much justified. And so to have to really embrace the idea that everything is the Purusha, everything happening to me or for me, however you want to think about it, everything that I see around me, all of this is actually manifestation of the Purusha only, the Supreme Lord. On one level, it sounds very beautiful, but on another level, the implication on our sense of separateness is pretty heavy. And because again, some of our sense of separateness we feel is very good. Is very nice. What is wrong with this separateness? This guy, I'm good. This guy is evil. So what's the problem? Like this sort of thing. So then this sort of teaching presents a challenge to that way of thinking. So I personally have found it to be a little challenging sometimes. And I'm sure I've shared this story 100 times, but here's 101 times. One of the stories that I often go to for on a personal level is Haridas Thakur, where he was arrested for chanting Hare Krishna. I think it's a good story because I feel like those times are coming for some of us in America. So you chanting Hare Krishna, you're under arrest. So he was arrested for chanting Hare Krishna and thrown into the prison unfairly. And then later, after that, he was beaten in 22 marketplaces so severely that in the first marketplace, he should have died. Somehow he was not dying. That's how severely they were beating him. And they did that in 22 marketplaces to set an example and put the people into the fear. And he didn't die. Somehow or other, he did not die. And his executioners, they were themselves astonished that this fellow has not died. And then they became scared. If you don't die, we will die. So then Haridas Thakur went into the samadhi. So it looked like he was dead. And so they threw his body in the Ganga because that was for them considered some form of disrespect because he was, I guess, at least as the story reads, he was supposed to be buried properly. If he was respected as Muslim, he would be buried properly. So they threw the body into the Ganga. Now, this is the most amazing part of the story. Haridas Thakur comes to external consciousness from the samadhi, and then he goes back to the place where they were persecuting him. And he's just like, Hare Krishna. And when they saw him like so boldly approaching and, chanting Hare Krishna, they said, okay, you must be a saintly person. Actually, we thought you might have been a saintly person, but we wanted to test it out. I was like, there was no other test. 22 marketplaces, only test you could give. Anyway, my mind often goes to this story because Haridas Thakur, when he's being judged, taken to the courtroom, he gives this more confidential knowledge to the magistrate. His teaching is not one of pure devotional service per se, but he actually teaches this guhyatara to the magistrate. He said, actually, everything is a manifestation of Paramatma. And all religions, all names of God are names of the Purusha only. Like this, he's giving teaching like that. You can go and see in Chaitanya Bhagavat. And then he was put to the test, right? The people beating him, they're also manifestations of Purusha, the everything. And he had no animosity toward them. That's the part of the story that really astonishes me. I always like to say it like this. He had the freedom not to hate his persecutors, which is like a profound level of freedom. It doesn't always mean that one doesn't do something externally in certain scenarios that will also be there, like Arjuna fighting in the wars. But to have the freedom to not hate those who persecute you inside is just like, it's mind-blowing thing. Srila Radhanatha Swami, he often likes to, not often, but I've heard him on several occasions reference Booker T. Washington, where he has some statement that I will not allow any man to degrade my soul by causing me to hate him. And it's like a very, well, if you're able to embrace this Guhyatara knowledge, then it's that's the practice. And so anyway, from this pastime, Vamandev, we see his form is containing everything. He is everything. He is a universal form. And that was demonstrated in his first two steps. So now we're to put the third step. So that is to be continued. Some cliffhangers here. So we'll stop here. I've rambled enough. I'm grateful you could tolerate for so long. If anyone wants to ask the questions or give some comment, we welcome it now.
Thank you, bro. Everybody is like, the setting is unmuted. Like, if anyone is interested, please unmute yourself. Share your comment or questions.
Haribo.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Wonderful class. We just completely relax and relish bathing, basking in your wonderful presentations. We have a question though. It seems like we're saying that if we see Krishna everywhere, then we'll be peaceful. Like it says, since Krishna is the reservoir of beauty, if we see Krishna everywhere, we'll see beauty everywhere. If we see Krishna everywhere, then will we be peaceful. But it seems like Shukracharya is seeing Krishna, but he's not accepting Krishna. So therefore, he's not peaceful. So besides seeing him everywhere, if we say, you are my Lord, your will be done, I'm yours, it seems like a little step beyond seeing him. Is like,
yes, the step is the bhavana. So he saw, but he did not have the bhavana.
Right.
That is why Prabhupada has also said that he said to be a devotee means your mind. I once heard Ganesham was referencing Prabhupada. I don't know where Prabhupada said this, so apologies. I usually like to, but Ganesham Prabhu was giving class and he said this thing that he was referencing. Prabhupada said to be a devotee means your mind. Therefore, the most confidential or most secret knowledge, Krishna says, Ma mana bhava mat bhakto. So he says, Ma mana bhava, that your mind should think of me. And mat bhakta bhava, and you should become my devotee. So Shukracharya is seeing with the eyes, but he doesn't have the bhavana. That is the difficulty for him. So we also see the deities, but we don't have the bhavana. So that is a difficulty for us also. So yeah, that is a difficulty. The bhavana has to be there. So
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Like generally, we consider like how the conception of Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan, and we see it as like the personal conception is the highest conception. So when anyone comes to the path of bhakti, then as given in Manmanabhava Mad Bhakta, we directly engage them and expect them to engage in devotional service, which is like begins with chanting, hearing about the Lord like that. And we consider the practices for realizing Paramatma as like a different path actually. It's a different discipline we see. But it seems like not having that kind of a vision causes trouble while practicing bhakti, leads to offenses. Forget about seeing like everybody else outside, even within the devotee community, it's very difficult to see have a very spiritual vision dealing with them. So is it not then these practices of realizing Paramatma or seeing the Lord everywhere is like also very crucial for devotees? How do they develop? Is it like just by practicing bhakti gradually one comes to the level, or one has to do something separately?
Yes. Well, the main practice of bhakti is Shravana, Bhagavat Shravan, right? So if you hear, then you're hearing this message also, right? It's coming right squarely in the Bhagavatam. Many times this is coming in the Bhagavatam. Not only here, everywhere, practically every canto, this message is appearing. So if you hear, then after hearing Shravana, there should be Manana, right? First there's Shravana, then there's Manana. Manana means the contemplation, right? You have to think about it and what is the implication of the thing that you're hearing. And then after you hear, then you apply the nididhyasana, then you can assimilate. So if we're gonna say like that only bhakti is required, yeah, I think that's okay. But then what is that bhakti? So then Bhagavat Shravan is there. And that Shravan, unless you're spontaneously attracted to the reality, then that Shravana is followed by Manana and Nididhyasana, which means the contemplation and the assimilation. So the other thing that can be said is that the more secret and the secret knowledge is included within the most secret knowledge. So therefore, we don't think of like techniques of remembering Paramatma independently because the messages of the Bhagavatam include that sort of technique. For example, the general method in which devotees respond to, let's say, reversals in life in the Bhagavatam is to say, this is Krishna's mercy. Simple. All the Paramatma Tattva you need is right in that one little phrase without much complication. Now, rather than not we feel like that takes some time to mature. But you'll see that the devotees, even the new guys, they have the practice of saying that. Basically, in the beginning, suffering is equated to Krishna's mercy. You have some suffering, you say Krishna's mercy. The training becomes like this. Purification, another one. Purification is a synonym for suffering. I'm being purified. So tate nu kampan shukshamikshamano bonjana eva makritam vipaka revava puber vadidana namaste. Yes. So like this, that is a general training of devotees, right? You become Krishna. Then someone will say, oh, how do I know it's my karma? This that doesn't matter. Just rather, if you want to meditate on Krishna, whether it's karma or not, you'd say it's Krishna, and you become Krishna bhavana. Krishna bhavana will come from that. And that is the teaching, right? So it becomes a little confusing sometimes to know when you have to act. Like sometimes let's say, right thing to do is to do some action. And like Arjuna, I gave example Arjuna, so some action is there externally. So that requires higher guidance, maybe specific guidance is required for knowing how to act sometimes. But as far as these teachings are concerned, it's to protect our hearts. So you can act externally, even in a very ferocious way, like Arjuna did, but his heart is not contaminated because it has a Krishna bhavana inside. Tasmat kaleshu, what is that word? Tasmat sarvam kaleshu, mama nusmana yudicha, from Bhagavad Gita 8:7.
Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu
mama nusmanam yudhyacha.
Maya arpita manobuddhir mameveshvasya samshaya.
Yes. So this verse, Krishna is saying, always, at all times, you should remember me. Because Arjuna said, how to remember you at the time of death? Why only at the time of death? At all times you remember me. And you ditcha, and you also fight. Don't think you can get out of that one, Arjuna. I see you trying to be slick. You can't get out of this one. You got to fight also. So sometimes that may be required, but his heart will be protected because inside the Krishna bhavana is there. So these teachings are for that part, to protect the heart, because that's the most important part. You don't want to die with vengeance in your heart and hatred. And even if it's justified hate, you don't want to die like that, because this sort of peculiarity in the material world is if you die like that, you get to become the thing that you hate in the next life, or even in this life. Sometimes it happens also. So anyway, my point is that what contained within the teaching of Bhagavatam is Paramatma Tattva is there, and this sort of practice. Just in the phrase, this is Krishna's mercy. Just in that one phrase, you get all the class I gave today is contained in that one little phrase itself. And if we embrace that, and of course we're able to do so if we hang around devotees who really truly embrace this idea, then you got your Paramatma Tattva right there, and your heart will be protected. And if you die, you go back home, back to Godhead. Yay. Of course, easier said than done, but
it's 8 o'clock.
Yes, indeed. So, Hari.